We good? Sweet. It's amazing how microphones work, isn't it? Genius. So, band, I'm sorry. I'll fix this later. Or if I don't, y'all can. First of all, he walked out of here. But I just want to tell Ben, I just want to tell him thank you so much. Genuinely, just for what he means to me in my life. And not me personally, only in a selfish way, but you guys don't know a tenth of what he does. And some of the other adults could go ahead and agree with that. This guy loves you so much. And he loves God too, first and foremost, above everything else. And he loves you guys so much. He sacrifices a lot for you that he would never tell you. And he would probably punch me in the face that he knows if he knows I'm doing this right now. But I just want to thank him so much for what he does here and how God uses him. But yes, so I'm Cole. And if I'm feedbacking, I'm sorry about that. I'm super glad to be here. I'm so pumped to be here. To hang out with you guys. I see some new faces in the crowd. I hope we can meet and embrace hands. Not quite like this, but something like this afterwards. And so I'm really glad you guys are here. It's going to be great. It's going to be fun. It's going to be awkward because it's me. At some points, it's going to be really sarcastic because it's me. But it's going to be great. And I hope that truth is spoken tonight. All right, so I'm going to start off with a story that I love to tell. It's one of my favorite stories ever. So when I was a freshman in college a couple years back, before that, I kind of had this crew in high school of just my boys, man. They're just my friends. You have that, girls have that. Like, these are just my girls. And the guys are like, these are my boys. And so these are my boys, and they were awesome. And that's the one thing that I was really sad about leaving Florence to move here is because I didn't want to have my boys anymore. And I wanted my boys and all that kind of stuff. And so when I got here, that was one of my main goals, to find a group of boys, just men, bros that I could hang with. And I eventually was blessed with that. Let me go ahead and put this side note. Guys, if you don't have that, girls, if you don't have that, I'm not just talking about friends who you happen to hang out with a lot. I'm talking about people who you share struggles with. People who are real with you and are striving after the same things. And yeah, you aren't perfect, trust me. That's fine. But just find that, especially seniors. Who are seniors in here? Going off to college next year, or the workforce, or tech, or whatever's going on. Find that. Especially if you're moving away, you need that, man. But anyways, so that was me. And one of the first persons that I met, that was in my crew, my boys, was this guy named Patrick. Patrick Floyd. Patty, Patty Whack. That's one of my names I call him. He is literally one of my I have several best friends, but he's up there in that category of best friends. He's great. We get along together. We're literally twins. People like Cassie and Ben have seen us dress alike on several occasions, not timing it or not planning it. We just show up and we're all wearing cords and plaid and chacos. This is how we do. Because we're best friends, man. It's awesome. Best friends kind of do something like that together weirdly. But anyways, so, but other than that, he loves Jesus. And I'm proud to say that he loves Jesus. He's striving after him. Like I said, he's not perfect, but he's just a great influence on me. And I hope I'm a great influence on him. But anyways, aside from all of that, one of our favorite things to do together is get into a little mischief, a little curiosity, and every now and then a little trouble, if you will. Not necessarily anything bad or illegal, but we do enjoy the occasional prank or a mischievous deed, if you will. So this is one of my favorite stories of a mischievous deed we did one time. So my senior year in high school, before I was ever at Lander, before I ever met Pat was at Lander that year, obviously, and because he's a couple years older than me, and he had a girlfriend then. We won't say her name in case some of you really know Pat really well, better than I think you do, so I don't want to call anyone out. But he had a girlfriend, and they dated, about a year, and typically, sometimes relationships do, it just ended. It ended badly, okay? It didn't work. It wasn't I don't think I've ever been in a breakup where ooh, that was breezy, that was nice. But I have been in a breakup before, but that wasn't so bad. I have a scar or two, but this one was mutilation. This one was I'm gonna have to cut off limbs, and this is a bad, dirty breakup. It was just rough. It was a very messy breakup, and in that. When you tend to date someone for a few months or even a year or more, you tend to collect things that originally belonged to the other person, So that kind of happens. A guy might have a girl's bracelet, hair thingy. Girls might have the guy's jacket. That's a typical one that I know. Just that kind of stuff. Well, this kind of collected between the two, Pat and his girlfriend. And so at the end of the relationship, they were like, hey, I want my stuff back. And so he gave her he gave her stuff back that was originally hers or whatever, maybe some stuff that she gave him, and he was like, I want my stuff back. She goes, okay, here you go, here you go, here you go. He's like, wait, there's one thing missing. She says, what? He's like, my hammock. All right, now it's not just any hammock. It's not like one of these string hammocks that you hang in the backyard, like at Hawaii or something. This is a hammock. Like, this is an Eno, okay? He knows what an Eno is. This is an Eno, an Eagle Nest Outfitters hammock. If you don't have one, get one. Save up your money. It's a great life decision. It's made out of parachute material. If you break it, you're trying. It's awesome. It's so great. You can hang it up anywhere that's sturdy, and it's awesome. So he had an Eno. I mean, he doesn't want to give this, especially to his ex-girlfriend, but she wouldn't give it back to him. Like, she hid it from him. Like, she kept it at her parents' house in Colombia. Like, she wouldn't, give it back to him. She was just being so weird about it. It was like a child to her that she wouldn't give back to him. He didn't have rights to or anything. Like, she just wouldn't give it back. And so I think after a couple of weeks or maybe a month or so after, pining after this thing, he just kind of, I guess, forgot about it. I kind of put it over, just kind of left the argument alone because he saw that he was losing. And so, fast forward to about a year later when I meet him, me and him are hanging out one day. I'd heard this story about this messy, dirty breakup between him and this girl, and didn't even know about this hammock situation. But one day, him and I are hanging out at Lander, and one of our great friends, who some of you might know, named Jonathan Smith, comes running up to us one day. He's like, pat, 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 pat. He sounds like a gun going, pat, 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 pat. I was like, what's up? And Pat was like, what's going on? Jonathan, what's up? He's like, dude, do you remember when you and so-and-so broke up? See how I'm covering up the name there? I thought I was going to mess up there. But remember how you and so-and-so broke up? And he was like, yeah, I remember that, of course. And he was like, you know how she wouldn't give you your hand back? Yeah, of course. He's like, well, I was hanging out at her apartment the other night with some other of our friends, and I went on her back porch and her patio, and it was right there. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. And Jonathan was like, it was right there. And Pat was like, oh, okay, cool. He's like, no, you don't get what I'm saying. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. Oh, okay. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he looks at me and I'm like, no. And he gets that mischievous look. You know what I'm talking about. Y'all do this. The finger on the lips thing. Like, he gave me that look, and I was like, no. And Jonathan at this point had left, and he keeps giving me that look. And I'm like, dude, are you okay? And he was like, we're doing this. And I'm like, no, we're not doing this. I'm leaving. So I got up and I started, and he grabbed my shoulders, turned me around, and he said, I'll call you later tonight. And I was like, no, we're not doing this. And so I left him on the thing, whatever I was doing, did homework, probably not, it was freshman year. So I go back to my room, and I remember it was about 10:30, 11. I'm getting ready for bed, kind of winding down, that whole kind of thing. Some of you were like, 10:30, 11? I mean dinner at 10:30 or 11. I just winding up then. And I was like, no. So I was getting ready to wind down for bed, and I get a call. I remember this like it was yesterday. My phone was on my bed, and I saw it ring, and I saw Patrick pop up, and I'm like, nope. Not answering it. Not doing it. Because I knew what was going to happen. And so I answered, and I was like, hey. And I just heard, when you can talk to someone, you can tell what mood they're in, just hearing their voice. I just could hear the breathing of excitement. He was like, hey, man, what's going on? I was like, what's up? He's like, are you ready for this? And I was like, dude, something else going on. He's like, okay, I can't tell you, but I got it, but I can't. But just come to my house at 1 o'clock, and hangs up the phone. And I'm like, 1 o'clock? Are you serious? I'm like an 8 a.m. or something. So I called him back and said, 1 o'clock. He said, 1 o'clock, and hung up the phone again, literally. I was like, hold on. 1 o'clock? He said, 1 o'clock. And hung up the phone. I was like, oh my gosh. And then he called me back and I'm like, we're black. Beep. I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to prison. I'm not going to do well in prison. I'm just planning my life. I just couldn't do well. And I'll just put it that way. And anyways, so I do it. I go to his apartment. I get in my car at 12:50-ish. I wear black. I do the whole shebang. I get over there and I walk to the door, and it's like a weird mix that he had either been duck hunting and joined the Navy SEALs. It was really weird because he walked to the door and he was wearing camo, black, and he just has his face blacked out. And I'm like, just standing in his apartment, just standing there, and I'm like, what's going on? I'm nervous at this point. No, y'all know I like adventure, but this freaked me out. So this is not good that this freaked me out, because y'all know me. And he literally walks in, he's like, anyone follow you? I'm like, I'm not in the CIA. I'm not Jason Bourne. What's going on? And he closes the door, and he locks it, looks through the blinds, okay, I think we're good. No one's here. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. And he hands me this black paint, put this on your face. And I was like, okay. And he goes, no, put it on your face. And he starts smeared all over my face. And I'm like, what's going on? And he hands me out this map that had black paint and Cheeto dust all over it that he'd been working on for 5 hours. And this is the plan. He was like, I know how this apartment complex works. It's like a big circle, and it's just like the circle in the back. We're going to go back there. We're going to just go get it. It's going to be really easy. We're going to park here, and you're planning it out. So I'm like, all right. So we get in this Kia Sportage, which is the car of champions, by the way. If you're going to do something mischievous, drive a Kia Sportage. I mean, obviously, it's cool. So we get in the Kia Sportage, which he no longer has, Kia Sportage. And so we get in there, and we get to this apartment complex that shall not be named, because some of you here live there, I believe. And, hey, I heard a laugh. And so we get to this circle, and so it's like the apartments are like a circle. So we go in the back, and we're kind of walking, and we don't know exactly which one it is, but we know when we see it, because it's a hammock, obviously. So we're walking around, doing the whole deal, and we're like totally blacked out. I'm like, if we get caught, like we may have not done anything, but if a cop just sees us dressed like this, yeah, you're going to jail, obviously, just because we look like we were doing something bad. And so we're trying not to get caught, and so we walk around this whole circle of apartments like 2 times and didn't see it at all. Like, dude, this thing doesn't exist. Maybe she knew we were coming. Like, I don't know what's going on. Maybe she's a sorcerer that way. I don't know what's going on. I mean, she was crazy, you said, right? So I don't know. And so he was like, dude, I've got this really weird feeling. And I was like, what's up? And he's looking at the ground. And I'm like, what? It's not, she doesn't live underground. Like, what's going on? And he's like, I can't look up. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what do you mean you can't look up? I'm looking up, it's fine. He's like, no, I can't look up. Because I have a strange feeling. And I'm like, oh, crap. No, going home, dude, going home. And it was up there. It was on the second floor, a second floor patio, okay? That's pretty high, right? And we see it. It was right in front of us. I'm like, going home. And he grabbed me and goes, you're doing this. And I was like, me? This is not my deal. I didn't date a crazy girl who's keeping my child, aka a hammock. I didn't date. This is your deal, man. You got to do this. He goes, I can't do it. He's like, I can't do it, man. I'm freaking out. I can't do it. I can't do it. And I'm like, I'm not doing this. And he grabbed me and he goes, this is the worst excuse ever. But I don't know why he has like resorted to this, because this is like something I used with my brother when I was like 5. I don't know why he did this, but he grabbed my face. He's like, do you love Jesus? Really though? Like that excuse, like that reason to get me to do something because I have to do it, like automatically. It's like, hey man, you want to help me out with something? No, I'm not doing that. I'm going to hang out with my girlfriend. You love Jesus? Yes, I love Jesus. Then you'll do it for me. And I'm like, that's the dumb. I knew it was dumb, and he knew it was dumb, but he knew it was going to get me. And so he just got really nervous. Even this is his deal. So I don't know how we're going to get up there. And he was like, I'm going to boost you up, man. And I was like, all right, if y'all never seen Pat, he looks just like me. So let's put it that way. It's not going to work. And I was like, that's not going to work. He's like, I'm just going to boost you up, man. I've got a lot of adrenaline. I can feel it. I'm just going to boost you up. And so he creates like this, what cheerleaders, what is this called? This is something.
A base.
A base? Was that real? Is that legit? You know that? The cheerleaders concur? That's a base? That's pretty cool.
He is a cheerleader.
Oh, hey! So this is a base.
I am talking to you, Sean.
All right. So he made a base like this. Everyone let's make a base like that. So he made a base like this. And he's like, step up, okay? And on 3, I'm going to boost you up. And I'm like, okay. And he goes, 1? And I'm like, it wasn't 3. And literally, yeah, he was right. He had a lot of adrenaline. He threw me up. And I just caught myself and pulled myself out on this patio, okay? Now here's the thing. Here's where it gets interesting. I've never seen an Eno hammock before. He described me what it looked like, because I saw it, but I'd never seen one before. If you've never seen one, for those of you who have one, it's kind of difficult to figure out when you first get your hands on it, especially if it's tied up. So I'm up there, and I'm up there trying to do my thing. I'm trying to figure it out. It kind of has like a loop knot that you untie it on both ends, the whole kind of deal. I'm trying to figure it out, and I just get this weird feeling that I always feel like somebody's watching me. That feeling, you can't say it, you have to sing it. So it's one of those deals. And I turn around and I see a shadow in the window. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to jail. I'm going to get a red dot by my name on the computer, if you know what that means. And I was like, this is going to be bad. I look like a guy from Duck Dynasty. It didn't even exist yet, but still, sorcerer. I'm pretty smart. And I was like, it just looks weird. This is going to be bad, but it went away. And I got my calm back. So I was like, all right, this is it. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get the knot undone. And I couldn't figure it out. He kept yelling at me. He was like, Cole, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know how to do this, man. I don't know how to do it. He wasn't yelling, we were whispering. I was like, I don't know how to do this. And he was like, you're just blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that makes no sense. Blah, 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 blah. And a lot of blah, blah, blah going on. I'm like, I can't figure it out. I'm like, I'm bailing. I'm going. And without thinking about it, which was dumb, I just jumped. I was like, I'm out of here. And I just literally jumped off the second floor. This is true story. I just jumped on the second floor patio. And part of me was like, I just did that. And the other part of me was like, I just did that. Like, it was amazing. And I was kind of laying there, and he's like, I'm going to go do it. So we went and did it easy. Bam, did it. He had it. We were gone. We ran out of there. We went to Taco Bell. We went to Waffle House to celebrate. Both are great places to celebrate, by the way. If you're going to celebrate, go to one or the other. Not Ben. You know what I mean. But anyways, so that's what happened. Let me put it to you this way. I say all that for a good laugh to say this. Have you ever been in something that you just couldn't figure out? Like you just didn't get it. Like you just didn't understand. Like, why am I here? I don't get this. I can't figure this out. A lot of stuff's going on around me. You just don't get it. You have any hands on that? Like you just didn't get it. It could be anything. We're going to look at a guy tonight who just didn't get it. Let's look in Luke 7. We're going to go to verse 36. I'm reading for a different translation, the NIV. If you don't have that on your phone or if you don't have a physical copy of it, we're going to have it on the screen. So let's read this right here. Ready to go? Sweet. All right, starting in Luke 7, verse, 36. Thank you. I think I'm speaking tonight. But anyways, verse 36, we're going to start right here. It says, when one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him. All right, get that again. I love that first part. There's so many good things in here. When one of the Pharisees, remember the Pharisees are the guys that didn't like Jesus, or they're always trying to stump him up and kill him at some points and all this kind of stuff. Eventually, they're the ones that, for the most part, led to his death. But anyways, one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him. He went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. Verse 37, a woman in that town who lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house. So she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. Now, I've researched this, heard stories about this all my life. The alabaster jar of perfume, let's put it this way, super duper duper expensive. Okay, a lot of super duper dupers on there. Some believe the most average thing I can find is about 2 years' wages worth. So however much the average income in America, about $40,000 a year. It's the lowest income. That's $80,000 at least. If you're going to put it in our terms, at least is how much this thing costs. It's typically what they believe. Verse 38, as she stood behind him at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them. Verse 39, when the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, get that, he said to himself, he was thinking this, he said, if his man were a prophet, he would know who was touching him and what kind of woman she is, that she is a sinner. Verse 40, Jesus answered him, Simon, I have something to tell you. Go back, okay? You see that? Verse 39. When the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to himself, and then Jesus answered him and read his thoughts, man. How awesome. Jesus is so sick. He's so cool, man. He just read his thoughts. He said, Simon, I have something to tell you. He said, tell me, teacher. He said, verse 41, 2 people owed money to a certain moneylender. One owed him 500 denarii, which is a lot of money, I can tell you. And the other owed him 50. Neither of them had the money to pay him back, so the guy forgave the debts of both. Now, which of them will love him more? Simon replied, I suppose the one who had the bigger debt forgiven. You have judged correctly, Jesus said. Verse 44, then he turned toward the woman and said to Simon, do you see this woman? I came into your house. You did not give me any water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You did not give me a kiss, but this woman from the time I entered has not stopped kissing my feet. You did not put oil on my head, but she has poured perfume on my feet. Therefore I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. But whoever has been forgiven little, loves little. Verse 48, then Jesus said to her, your sins are forgiven. The other guests began to say among themselves, who is this who even forgives sins? Verse 50, Jesus said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Now guys, here's the thing about this. Let me go and just kind of describe to you what was going on here. So back in the day, this is pretty neat to think about. I'm going to get a book on you for a second. I'm kind of a historical guy. I like to research what's going on to lead up to this point, especially when it comes to biblical things. So back in the day, Pharisees, they were kind of like religious rulers. They were kind of like pretty much the government in a way in this town that Jesus lived in, this place. So they're pretty rich. They had a lot of moolah going on. They had a lot of this. So they're pretty rich. And what they would do to, I guess, either show off their wealth or just because it was time for a feast, whether it be like Thanksgiving or something, they would have these huge dinners These huge dinners. And they get the best goats and the most fattened calves and all that fun stuff, and they cook them up. And sometimes these parties would last for 3 days, 3 or 4 days. I mean, these things were legit. They would just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat and eat all day long. And they would eat and eat and eat and eat and eat all day long. And I'm sure at some point there's some stuff going on that didn't need to. But anyways, Jesus is one of these kind of get-togethers. And the thing about it is they would eat it outside, especially when it was nice weather typically. So typically when they had these big parties, they would eat them outside in this courtyard of the man's house. So it's at Simon's house, this really ornate kind of deal. And what it was is like these tables were really like low sitting towards the ground. You know what I mean? If you've been to one of those Indian kind of restaurants, they sit low to the ground and you would lean back on a pillow, and when you were done eating, like, oh, I ate so much, just that kind of stuff, that's what they were doing. And it was in this courtyard, and this courtyard had a wall that they typically believed was like yay high, maybe like a little higher, and it was kind of the deal where the people in the town who didn't get invited could see over the wall during the party, while the food was going on, while the people were feasting, all the important people. And the people who got invited to these things, the people who Pharisees like Simon would have invited to this, were people who were important. People who were good, people who were religious, pious is what I say. People who were spiritual, people who were the who's who of the day in this particular town. And so that leaves out a few people. It leaves out poor people automatically. They don't matter to these people. And then they'll also not invite another group of people besides poor people, people who had committed some sin that they didn't think was good, people who weren't right with the law, the religious law, people who weren't right with the church. And as you can see, this woman, who we label as a sinful woman in this passage, she obviously wasn't right with the church. They had a few qualms with her. People believe that she might have been a prostitute. People believe that she just might have been just kind of a loose woman who just slept with a lot of people. Those are kind of the two main theories about this woman. For whatever reason, she was sinful. And here's the deal. I'd like to go back to Simon really quick. For some reason, he has Jesus at his house. Now, if you know anything about the Pharisees, like I said, they don't like Jesus. So for the fact that Jesus was here at his house, either he was secretly really like Jesus and kind of believed his teachings, or B, probably the one more likely is he was maybe trying to trip him up, or maybe just because Jesus was popular, he wanted to have the most popular people at the town at his house, so he invited him there. And so if you can imagine what would happen at these parties is that in between each meal, while the next meal was being prepared, so say they finished lunch, like, oh, I'm so stuffed, let me lean back on my little cushy pillow, they would invite the poor people, or the people who weren't invited, who were looking at over the wall, probably just salivating, looking at all this nice food, they would invite them in to come clean up the scraps. Like, you can have the rest of that sandwich, or the rest of that goat, or whatever they were eating. And then they would invite them in to sit down and listen to the conversation, but don't touch anything. Okay? And when we tell you to leave, you got to. When the next meal comes out, you got to go. So that's typically, historically, what happened. So more than likely, this woman was coming in between meals when they would open up and let the untouchables come in. And so the thing about this is, if you read, I can just imagine this woman just coming in. And it says that Jesus, she came from behind Jesus. And she was already weeping when she came from behind him. So I could just imagine her. And this isn't a kind of like crying, like this is weeping. She's bubbling so much that she literally is probably crying so hard that she can't stand up. She sees Jesus, and from the moment that his back is to her, she starts crying. It's what the Bible says. She hasn't even seen his face yet. She knows she's crying. If you can imagine this, she has enough tears coming out to clean his feet off. She didn't have any water. She literally was crying so much that she just used her hair as a towel and cleaned off his dirty, nasty feet. And then she just broke open this bottle of a super expensive perfume. And you guys are thinking, man, what does this have to do with grace? Everything. That's my answer. Everything. I think this sinful woman, as we call her, is the best example of understanding what grace means. For the fact that she couldn't pay him back, and she knew that. But she just offered her best because he gave everything for her. She got it. She understood it. It's just so plain right there. She was so overcome by her love for Jesus and the fact of the grace that he had given her and would give her, that she just was so overwhelmed that she just gave him her best. This is my best. I break it open and give it to you. Give it to your body. These are my tears. I think we have two groups of people in here tonight. Two. I'm not going to point out who's who. I don't know. Some of you have guesses, but truly, I don't know. I think we have two groups of people. I think we have Simons, and I think we have the people who are the sinful, well, I'm calling you sinful women, but people who are just kind of like the sinful woman in here. Not by the way you live your lifestyle. I'm not saying that. We'll concentrate on the people who might be the Simon group. And I fit into both. More this one than I should. I came to faith at the age 13, right around 12, 13 area. It wasn't a big emotional concert, lights were everywhere, oh my gosh, I need you kind of thing. Some people come to faith, and that wasn't my story. It was simply a teacher at my school challenged me to read the Bible on my own, so I did. And I was like, hey, I kind of like this Jesus guy. I kind of want to apply this in my life, and so I came to faith. It's a little more complicated than that, but I came to faith. And from then on, especially in high school, I never really seemed to understand the idea of grace. Like, here's the thing. I knew that Jesus had died on the cross, and I knew he had given me grace, which I should probably explain that earlier. Grace is getting what you don't deserve. So Christ gave you grace, and he took your sins upon the cross, the most brutal death anyone has ever experienced, plus God's wrath, and gave you grace through that, so that one day you may be with him. And in the meantime, we're on this earth, glorify him. So that's what grace is. Getting what you don't deserve. And I never really understood that in high school or middle school. I just didn't get that. I knew that Jesus died on the cross. I knew I loved him. I knew I wanted to serve him. But I couldn't get over the fact, and this is my pride, that he had given me something that I couldn't repay back. That's what I couldn't get. Because I was selfish. I couldn't get over the fact that someone had given me something so great that I couldn't pay back. I felt like a charity case. I didn't like it. You hear old people say a lot, growing up, we were poor, but we didn't know we were poor. That's kind of the story of my family a little bit, not too bad. My mom seemed to be always sick from something. There's not a year that goes by growing up that I wasn't in the hospital for something having to do with my mom. Man, I know the hospital so well. And for guys, girls, guys who are going through that, I know exactly what you're going through. The situation might be a little bit different, but the context is the same. I mean, I could taste the hospital walls. Like, I just knew him so well. She was always sick about something, and at one point it got to the point where she couldn't go back to work because her health was so bad that she literally couldn't hold up a job. And so doctors decided, hey, you probably shouldn't work. She was a nurse. Oh, the best nurse ever. Loved people. Awesome with people. Knew her stuff. Great nurse. Nurses are awesome. Be a nurse. That's great. And so when she was retired on disabilities, I didn't really know it then, but we went through some hard times financially. And my dad was holding up 2, 3, 4 jobs at the time. And I remember there were a couple times he told me, he's like, there were a couple times we really weren't sure where our next meal was coming from or where your tuition for school was coming from. And so it's kind of one of those deals to where, I'm sorry, I guess just the Holy Spirit's just kind of doing his thing right now. But it was one of those deals where in that state for our family, there was sometimes people gave us something that we knew we couldn't pay back. I remember one year I wanted to go to camp. It's called Student Life Camp. We always went to when I was growing up in high school. And I remember one year I wanted to go, but I knew my family couldn't afford it. And I kind of talked to my parents like, yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen this year, just because of financial reasons. And I hated that. And the week before we left, my youth pastor was like, hey, man, you're going to Student Life with us next week. I'm like, I don't think so. Just can't really afford it. And he goes, oh, no, you're going. Like, you're already signed up, and I already have your money and everything. I'm like, what? He's like, someone paid for your trip. And I was like, really? Who is it? Of course, he wouldn't tell me. That really stuck with me. And I knew there was something I probably couldn't pay back. A, because I didn't know the person. But B, it's just something my family at the time couldn't really afford. And so I get that idea. I've kind of lived that out. That's just kind of an example of having something you couldn't pay back. And I couldn't get over that. And so what did I resort to when I couldn't get over the idea of grace, not being able to pay Jesus back? I tried even harder. I'm a genius, right? You figure that out. I resorted to legalism, which you don't know what that is, we'll talk. But I'll put it to you this way. I just kept trying to do things to pay back Jesus. I tried to be a good person. I tried to do all the right things. I read my Bible every night. Check it off. I was at prayer breakfast on Fridays at my school every Friday. I was there to cook. I had a key to my youth house. We had a youth house. I had a key to the youth house of my church. When I was 15, 16, I was opening up the door and locking it when everyone left. I was serving. Woohoo. Now, this is not to be boastful. Not to say, look at me. But I was playing in the band. I was mentoring middle schoolers when I was in high school. I was leading middle school small groups. I was doing all this stuff saying, hey, Jesus, look at me. Here you go. Here you go. Check it off. Put it on my tab. And he said, nope. Not doing it. Because what I gave you, you can't pay back. Just take it. It's grace. And yeah, I wasn't doing all those things all the time with the intention. But that was my motive and my heart. It took me a while to realize that. Because it always came back up empty. And I think I relate to Simon so much, who resorts to being a religious teacher, knowing everything about this, but not living it out one bit. Because when a lady that is sinful comes around me, I was like, not messing with her. I can relate to that so much. Guys, I spent 4 solid years at least of my life just trying to pay God back and be a good person, but not doing one thing to advance the kingdom. Because I didn't understand grace, and I didn't embrace it. And I don't think if you can understand and embrace grace, I don't think that you can practice it, and I don't think you can show it, and I don't think that Christ can move through your life. And so let's get off of that, because I could literally spend a whole another hour, and I know there's a concert some of you guys want to go to or whatever, but I'm just going to let God move right now, and I'm sorry about that. Not sorry. But the other group of people we might have here in the room, hats off to you guys, if that's you. If you're categorized as a sinful woman, yeah, you're not perfect. You're not. You might be doing some things at this moment that you just can't really seem to get out of. This struggle, these sins, that's me. And this week, I've messed up. I haven't even mentioned the last 21 years of my life. There's some of you who are like, I'm struggling with a sin, I know. Dadgummit, I love Jesus. And I'm sorry. And I'm doing my best. But here's the thing. In my sin, I know that there's one greater who has saved me from my sin. I know there's one greater who has taken that. And I fall at his feet because I'm not worthy. Because as soon as I get up, I'm probably going to sin again. And I realize that. But I love you, Jesus. Here are my tears. Here's my hair. Here's my best. I give it to you because you gave your best for me. There's some of you in here like that. And to you, this is what I say. Fight the good fight. Persevere, man. Don't give up. Because I feel, man, and this isn't really part of it, what I planned, but that's just the Spirit doing His thing. I feel like there are some of you in here who need to hear these words. Don't give up. Don't quit. Don't quit. Don't quit. Job writes one time, he's like, God, I just don't see you. You're in the north. I go up there, I don't see you. They say you're working in the west. I don't see a bit of you. They say you're in the east. I haven't seen you. No one's seen you over there. They say you're in the south. You literally pass me by. I don't see one glimpse of you. I don't see you. I even question if you exist at times. But I know this. You see me. And when I come out of this, I'll be as gold. But in the meantime, I'll follow in your footsteps. And I'll obey your commandments. Don't give up, guys. So for those of you who are like that, who get grace, man, that's awesome. And you realize you're not perfect. And that's been me at times. It was only just about 2 years ago I realized for the first time what grace meant in my life. And that God giving me that, and I couldn't pay Him back. And it was really then when I realized that God deserves my life. Not for the fact that I can look good and practice legalism and check off the list, just because I literally can't pay Him back because He's given me His life, so I'm going to give Him mine. And it's not enough, but He gets that. He's okay with that. He doesn't want you to pay Him back. God's not your bookie. You know? God's not your loan shark. And let's look at Ephesians 2, 8 through 9 really quick to kind of follow this up. And I know I might not be making sense. I know I might be all over the place, but that's just kind of how I do. I just think that's God working through me. So I hope He uses this. We think Galatians and Ephesians. I have to sing the song in my head to know where it's at. We're going to be in Ephesians 2. We're going to read 2 verses really fast. Sweet. Verse 8. For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith. And this is not from yourselves. It is the gift of God. Not by works, so that no one can boast. You get that? That describes me. This is what I needed to hear for a long time. For it is by grace you have been saved, through faith. And this is not you. You didn't do this. You didn't achieve this. This is nothing that you did. It's something you can be proud of and say, look at me. No, you didn't do this. It is a gift of God that He gave to you. Not by works, so that no one can have a chance to boast and say, look at me. And some of you I'm laughing at right now. Honestly. Because I know exactly what you're thinking. The funny thing is, I'm reading some of your thoughts right now. I'm not like Jesus did to that guy, but I'm reading some of your thoughts. You want to know why? Because I'm just like you. We got some sneaky people in here, man. Oh, man, we got some sneaky little sneaks. We got some sneaky church mouse in here. We got some sneaky church mice. Man, I know what you're thinking. I can read your mind. You're sneaky. It's funny. You want to know how I know that? Because I'm just like you. Oh, man, I'm sneaky. Like, if you're in a building with me and I'm talking and you heard suddenly just don't see me anymore and don't see me talking, duck for cover because something's about to happen to you. Because I'm just sneaky, obviously. I'm just a little mischievous guy. And I'll put it to you this way, and stay with me right here. I may be little, but boy, if I can't put down some food, all right? Ben knows, me and him went to Laha yesterday. We got those big 2, yeah, amen, right there. Holy Spirit, woo-hoo. 2 of those big like lunch, those lunch specials. Those things are awesome. They're cheap. And we cleaned our plates, man. I was like licking it, making sure I was getting the grease off. He ordered queso pretty much for himself. I took it from him, like, that's mine. And we just ate all the chips. We had to bring back more. But our waiter took a nap or something, I guess, you know. But I can put down some food, okay? So I'll put it to you that way. So when I was in high school, it was even worse, because when you're growing, high school guys, you know what I'm saying. And we got some parents in here of high school guys. We got some parents in here of high school guys. I'm sorry for your wallets, dude. I really am. You have a teenager, especially a teenage guy. Take out a loan to pay for that, probably. I'm sorry, man, just for the food alone. You know what I'm talking about. So when I was growing up, lunch just didn't seem to satisfy me in school, and so I'd come home, and the first thing I'd do is go for a snack. And my snack of choice, listen right here, if you want to make me happy, if you want me to be your best friend, some of you might not want that, but if you want me to be your best friend, especially Valentine's Day is coming up, so you want to do something nice for me as a Valentine's gift, I'll tell you what to do. You get in your car, you grab a couple bucks, $3 or $4, you go to Dollar General, and you buy a box of oatmeal cream pies. All right, I heard that. Yeah, You buy those, you give them to me. That will make me the happiest man in the world. I will be eternally grateful and faithful to you. I'll follow you around. I'll babysit your kids when you have kids. Some of you, that's a scary thought of you having kids. But when that happens, I'll protect them from you. I will do that because I love oatmeal cream pie so much. And that was my snack of choice. And then I'd come in, I'd drop my book bag. We had this huge like white pantry kind of deal with these huge white double doors. And I'd go right for an oatmeal cream pie. My mom knew that. And she'd either be in the den or in the kitchen, which on the stove right behind me cooking dinner. And she knew that's the first thing I did. It wasn't even a, hey, how are you, Mom? I was like, oatmeal cream pies, can't think until I get something in my food. All right, now I can talk. And she saw when I opened those 2 white doors, or she heard me do it, I always heard this one thing. Oh, man, I can hear it right now. Sorry. Whoops. Oh, superpower. I can hear it right now if I think about it hard enough. Every time I open those 2 white pantry doors, she'd say, Cole? Ma'am? Just one. Oh. Okay. And sometimes she'd be like right behind me, but it's the way it opened up that if you stood right, people could see that the doors were open, but they couldn't see really what you were doing. And so I had this thing, because I'm a sneaky little church mouse, right? I grabbed one and put it in my hand, And then I grabbed one and put it in my pocket. Now, I knew that if, it depends on where she was standing, what pocket I needed, because if she was coming in from the den, she'd be on my right side, so I needed to put it in my left pocket, right? Okay, and some of you was like, man, this guy's horrible, but some of you are worse than this. And if I knew she was on the stove and I turned around, she'd be on my left side, so I put it in my right pocket, all right? And I never really got away with it, that I thought at least, because she always knew. But here's the thing, I'm sneaky, and I see some of you are sneaky. And I know exactly what you're thinking right now. All right, here, shh, 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 shh. Everyone, listen right here. Because some of you are thinking it. And I'm about to blow your mind probably, or God is. You're thinking, man, that grace card's pretty nice. It's a pretty cool little trick. That's pretty cool. I like the whole idea of grace, the way Cole explained it. All right, cool. I'm going to use that on Saturday morning. Pretty hard. I'm going to use that tomorrow. After that test I didn't really study for, so I sat beside the person I know who did, and that grace card, whoop, you got one of those. Those are pretty nice. The grace card, and I've been like that. I've been like, oh man, I'm so sorry I sinned, Jesus. Here's that grace. Go ahead. Come on, give me some of that. Appreciate it, buddy. See you later. And I wouldn't even walk out the door before I was sinning again. And some of you are like that. And here's the form of that. Honestly, that's, if you want to really get down to it, it's making a God that you like, so it's idolatry. Sorry, I've done that before too. That's really what it is. You're sneaky like that. So you're thinking, I might try to pull that grace card. Let me show you something really quick. So when Jesus, whenever he was doing his things, when he was living on earth in his 33 years, and he would heal people or forgive people of their sins and all that kind of stuff, you see a lot in the Bible, which is awesome. He would always say, okay, great. Your faith has saved you. Now go. That's what he said, right? 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 No, you're wrong. Okay. He always said, all right, now great. Your faith has saved you. Now go and do my works. He said that, right? Nope. Right? Who's saying yes? Who's saying yes? Oh, you're wrong. Okay. I love calling the pedants wrong. It's so fun. I'm sorry. Except your mom. She's sweet. She's awesome. But you and your brother. Anyways, so that's not what he said. 9 times out of 10. And we're going to look at it in just a second. Actually, let's do that right now. Let's look at it right now. Really quick. Let's go to John 8. And I'm almost done, guys. I'm sorry about this. John 8. John, accent the letters of the Romans. All right. I'm telling you, it's the best way to remember it. John 8, verse 2. We're going to read this really, really quick, and this is kind of alluding to another story, but I really just wanted you to catch the last part. It says, at dawn he appeared again in the temple courts where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery, and the law of Moses commanded us to stone such a woman. Now what do you say? They were using the question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her. Again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to say, Go away, began to go away one at a time. The older ones first, until only Jesus was left with the woman still standing there. Verse 10, this is where I really want you to key in. Jesus straightened up and asked her, Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you? No one, sir, she said. Verse 11 right here. Then neither do I condemn you, Jesus declared. Go now and leave your life of sin. He always alluded to that, if he didn't just flat out say it. He said, your faith has saved you. Now go and sin no more. Go and sin no more. Here's the thing. I know I've been all over the place. But here's the thing right here, guys. I know some of you have been good your itty-bitty little lives. That's not my story, as you can hear. That's not me. But if you can just embrace grace, just grasp it and grab it and realize it's something that you can't do, but just live in that. There's freedom in that. And some of you aren't even in this. You aren't even in this. You don't have a bull in this fight, if you will. You're not even of faith. And to this, I tell you really quick, and some of those people who are of faith, who aren't living like Christ has called to them, who aren't doing things that are pleasing and holy to him, I tell you this really right here, really quick. Shh, shh, shh. Everyone, look at me. Everyone, eyes on me. This is the last thing. If I was to get in my car and turn on 25 tonight and get blindsided, and I was done, I was dead, and you buried me in the dirt a couple days later, that's the end of Cole's earthly body. Boo-hoo, sad story. If that happens tonight, this is the last thing I want you to remember me telling you. This is the last thing I want you to remember me saying to you. Okay, this is it. You ready? At some point, you got to decide what you want your life to be about. At some point. And Lord, I pray, I hope it's based off of this, and I hope it's based off of life of purity and seeking holiness. I really, really do. I'm going to tell you one more quick story as the band comes back up. And some of you are ready for me to shut up. And if I made you feel uncomfortable tonight, if I made you be bored and want to go to sleep, I'm sorry, not sorry. Because I really feel like God used this, I hope. So the band comes up and they play softly. I'm going to tell you one more really quick story. We have 3 characters, okay? Everyone, 3. Woo, raise them up, 3. Let's see if we can count. Sweet. That South Carolina public education, I like it. So we have, or Christian school education, private school kid, I don't know what you're dealing with. So we have 3 characters, okay? We have a mom. We probably have a dad. And we have a son, teenage son. We're going to call him Johnny, just for fun. So we have mom, dad, and Johnny, okay? That's not 3. Put them down. We have 3 characters, mom, dad, and Johnny, okay? Johnny's a teenage son. Now, typically, on a Friday night, Johnny will go hang out with his friends. You know, I'll go to the movies, I'll go to the mall, I'll go to a friend's house, watch TV, hang out, maybe throw the football, watch sports if you're guys, do girly stuff if you're girls, all that fun stuff. But Johnny would typically go hang out with his friends, and this Friday night was no different. He went out with his friends to go hang out at someone's house or whatever. His parents knew they were cool because Johnny was typically a good kid. You know, he didn't really get in trouble or anything. Except this night was different. His parents went to bed before he got home. He normally got home a little bit after them, around 11, and they knew that. That was fine. But this night was different because Dad woke up. You with me right here? Dad woke up at 2 a.m. to like a bump in the night, just like something like got knocked over, and it just kind of woke him up. There was a loud noise, and he was like, "What's that?" And what it was Johnny sneaking in the house at 2 a.m. And he was trying to sneak in without getting caught, and I guess he kind of bumped something over in the middle of the night, hit a coffee table or knocked over a lamp, and it woke Dad up. Anyways, Dad went into the hallway to kind of figure out what this was about, kind of inquire what was going on. And in the kind of a dim shadow of the dark hallway, he could see a figure. He figured it was his son, and it was. But he flipped on the hall light to see really what was going on, and he saw this right here. And then he saw Johnny slowly turn around. And boy, if that guy wasn't intoxicated. He was drunk. I mean, he was gone. I mean, he had vomit on his shirt. His eyes were just kid was wrecked. He was just messing up. I'm not glorifying that. I'm saying this kid messed up, obviously. And all Johnny wants in that moment is just to go to his room, right? Just to go to sleep and act like this never happened. But he didn't. Because his dad's there. And Dad feels Mom come out of the room behind him because she woke up too. She sees what's going on, and she sees that Johnny's drunk and intoxicated heavily. And at this point, the attention is on one person, and one person only. Who is it? Who? Johnny? No.
Jesus.
Not Jesus. Jesus, Jude. Gotcha. Not Jesus. It wasn't on Johnny. The attention's not on Mom. The attention's on Dad. Because he's the authority. He's the one. You're in trouble or you're not. That comes from Dad. He's the authority of the house. All eyes are on him. But Dad does something weird. Just strange. He looks at Johnny, who's drunk. He looks at Mom. All this is going on at 2 in the morning. He says, "Hey, Mom, honey, baby, sugar, go to our room. Go in the closet, get that brand new camera we got for Christmas, make sure it has fresh batteries, and bring it out to me." She's like, "Okay," and just goes and gets it, and Johnny's just kind of like, he's kind of waking up from his drunkenness in a way. He's kind of like, what's going on? And so she brings out the camera, and he's like, "Sweet, cool, this is the setting I want you to use. On 3, snap us." And he goes over to Johnny, and he gets him a big bear hug. He's like, "All right, Johnny, this one's me and you, buddy, all right, on 3. And he gives him a big old smile, and Johnny's kind of like a deer in the headlights. He's kind of like, "Okay, what's going on?" And so they take the picture, and he gets it back from Mom, and goes, "Oh, that's a good one, man. That's a good-looking picture. Sweet. All right, good night, guys." Goes back to bed. Johnny and Mom are like, "What's what's going on? It's kind of weird. But anyways, they shuffled back to bed. And the weekend was strange for Johnny because no one said anything to him. His dad didn't say a word. His dad acted like normal. Maybe a little bit different than normal, because I'll tell you what he did. He took that camera, went up to the Walgreens, got a picture developed, and this huge, just the biggest print he could get. I mean, high gloss, expensive, took all the red out of the eyes. I mean, made it look good. Took it to a framist, this art shop, got it framed in this huge, nice, expensive frame. I mean, this thing was nice. Cost me a few $100, and it was awesome. He printed out the picture of him and his drunk son. And on Monday morning, he took that picture with him to work, and it was from the moment he got in the parking lot that morning to the moment he got back in his car that afternoon. He showed that picture to everyone he could. Sometimes even multiple times. And by the end of the day, everyone was sick of seeing this picture of this dad and his drunk son. But I tell you, there wasn't one person that he didn't show that picture to that he wasn't saying, look at my son. Look at him. I'm so proud of him. Oh my, you see that? Isn't he awesome? Isn't he great? Everybody's like, that kid's drunk. Does he not know? And he's like, dude, that's my son. Hey, come here, Bobby. Dude, look at my son. I know your son made the honor roll, but this is my son. Hey, Kathy, I know your daughter's getting married to this really nice guy, and she's making a lot of good things for herself, but look, this is my son. And so this is my son. And he's proud of him. Ignore this, guys. Listen, right here. Listen to the words. He said, this is my son. I am proud of it. And he shows that to everyone. And he leaves it on his desk so every client that comes in and sees ever, he's like, look at my son. I mean, he loses his business over it. It's okay. He is so proud of him. And get this, guys. If you haven't heard anything else I've said tonight, get this right here. That right there is what God does for us. That's grace. You hear me? That's grace. That's freedom. You've heard nothing I said. That's hope. That's a reason to serve. That's grace. It's a foundation. So close your eyes. Dad, you've called us to go and sin no more because you've given us grace. And may we understand that. Maybe for the first time tonight, really get that we are dead to sin. You say the old is gone, the new has come. May we come alive in grace. Now, Lord, I know I've rambled because I'm a human and I don't really make sense sometimes, but I hope you've used this. I hope you've used my shortcomings to glorify you. I hope you've told us to understand that you're not our loan shark. We don't need to be scared of grace. That, yeah, we can't pay you back. That's the whole beauty of it. The whole beauty of grace is that it makes life unfair. And that it's not fair. That's the whole beauty of it, because you are higher than us. And that's beautiful. And I thank you for that. May you continue to show us grace all through our lives. And may that be our song. May we sing of your grace. May we serve through your grace. I thank you for these students. May you continue to show your grace. May they embrace it freely. Not being a charity case, but realizing that it's worth something more than they are. In your awesome Son's precious name, I pray.